Hey guys, Jim here with Creative Play and Podcast Network, and here we are again in August. It is now hashtag RPGaDay again for its 8th year. God, it's been so long. Again, we're joining in with all the other tabletop gamers out there to get creative and use the prompts now for RPGaDay 2021 to inspire you guys to all write, vlog, blog, draw cool pictures. This year they're asking for whatever you do. So we are going to go ahead and start out with the next day. All right, guys, here we go.
Hi, this is Kelly, aka Trixie from Ragnarok and Roll, assigned to Ragnarok Story, and Tilda Wimblewick from D&D Journey of the 5th Edition. First off, I would just like to say thank you to everyone for listening to our varied adventures, as well as for rating us on iTunes and RPGpodcast.com. If you haven't rated us yet, we would greatly appreciate it if you could. And if you're looking for more ways to support our efforts, we are now on Patreon, a great site where you can help us continue making more podcasts, as well as some special surprises for our patrons. If you can, please look us up at www.patreon.com/cppn. Every little bit helps. And again, thank you for listening.
Hey guys, Jim here with Creative Play and Podcast Network, and it is August the 30th. Hashtag RPGaDay is back and almost over, like 2 days left. So it is time to make sure we share what we love about tabletop gaming and RPGs by talking, painting, writing, vlogging, blogging, or just doing some damn cool stuff, because it's all about damn cool stuff. Well, that and having fun. So joining me tonight for hashtag RPGaDay 2021 is a new voice you guys haven't heard. So, Dan, say hi.
Hey guys, happy RPGaDay.
So Dan, this is Dan Kriss. He has not been on the show before, but Dan, introduce yourself to the audience.
Hey guys, I'm Dan Kriss. I've loved adventuring in RPGs since I was just a wee lad, and James has been kind enough to invite me on here to talk with you guys tonight. I'm a game designer and a game lover and just a gamer, really. So.
And sadly, before this recording, we've been talking about gaming talk for like a little over an hour because we're just, game geeking out because that's what gamers do. So the word for the day is mention.
Mention.
So anything you've got for mention that would be gaming related. This is your first RPGaDay. This is, by the way, the 8th year that the designers have been doing this. Is basically we come up with something positive just to talk about, hash about, whatever, and then share it socially with hashtag RPGaDay 2021, so that way other folks can see it and share the good stuff.
That's awesome. Yeah, you got to mention it. Well, mention is important, like you say. I mean, to me, when I think of the word mention, I think of adventure. Or I think of danger or whatever, but the turning point, the point where things get different, where that new thing gets introduced or interjected. Like, we were at the shop we were in the market today, and I heard a local vendor mention, or I was hanging out at the Thieves Guild the other week, just sitting there, doing my thing and fencing some goods when I overheard a fellow thief mention, or we were hanging at the tavern just having some drinks after our last adventure when I heard an old wizened man behind us at a booth mention,
That's good.
It's that ejecting point where something new is around the corner, just beckoning to you, like, what will you do with that information? I mean, maybe it's a valuable piece of info. Maybe it's some hot political, interesting information, or maybe it's the location of a buried treasure, or the rumor of a monster lurking in the woods that desperately needs a hero to come disembowel it,
That's a good one, because that's one that I like, as a game master, I like to constantly do is do the sprinkling or light mentioning of themes or things that like stick out. Like earlier tonight when we were talking about Cthulhu the Great Old One, the game, the tentacle talk for Cthulhu. It's nice to like drop out you just mention Old One, and then you repeat at another shop when the players are talking to an NPC, they hear someone in the shop say Old One, or, Shaggoth, or something that you mention that leads them to the player, not the character, go the aha, Which mention is a good way of getting it. You get the buy-in with mention,
Yeah.
because all of a sudden players will hear you say it and they'll be like, "Aha! I see what you did there."
It's DM bait.
Mm-hmm,
It's like
yeah.
DM bait dangling on the fishing hook of mystery, wound to the string of destiny, being pulled by forces you do not know.
And the best part is when they just hear you mention it and they jump to it of their own accord, So it's not railroading. It's not forceful. It's out there for them to choose.
Yeah, well,
Which every commercial advertiser will tell you, it's not a choice. You've been manipulated.
yeah. Well, that is why any good gamer should always doubly and triply question anything that the DM mentions them hearing.
Now that you mention it, that's a good point. And I just like to throw it out there as a GM that, mentioning, to your players of, is there anything that you're looking for, is a good thing too. It's nice to bring it up to your players to remind them, because, players at the table get distracted because, like we were joking earlier, squirrel.
Yep.
They totally had this idea, but then another player said something else and they got distracted, and now, they forgot what they were there to do for it. And it's like, you might want, as a GM, to give them the prompt to just like, so you guys mentioned earlier you wanted to do this. Are you still planning that, or did you guys scrap that idea? So that way it gives your players a chance to double their efforts, and just remember to get back on track. Mention there's a lot of good, things on that. Like, as a GM, when your players sidetrack you mention, how about we take a 5-minute break?
Well, a good adventurer can also use it to their own purposes with the GM. Like, hey, by the way, you mentioned that a town up ahead had this person that was selling these things. Is this possibly that town? I look around and see if there's that oak tree they said was the vendor was near,
Ooh, that's the type of player I love at the table, because, you hear the winky winky, I was interested in that thing, so I'm mentioning it to you so you know that I'm interested in that thing, and I'm handing you on a silver platter, lifting that lid of making your life so much easier as a GM, because the player bait is back on the play,
Yeah. Or you have fun with him and hold him to task. Like, you mentioned that he just burst through that door. You didn't say that he was doing this, that, or the other. And clearly, if he's bursting through that door, his hand's on the handle. He can't be using a two-handed weapon at that moment, or whatever, Like, the spoils go to the victor, and the victory goes to the person who pays the most attention to details.
An ounce of preparation.
Yeah. Well, I always say the two most important things in life are awareness and discernment. Being aware of what's going on around you, of the situation you're in, and discerning what your best action for the, best outcome is in it. Or discerning your place in it, discerning what's going on with it and what you need to do about it.
Even if that's, I roll to hide.
One of my wife's characters, her favorite thing was like, okay, whatever this big bad steps out, from the woods or whatever. She's like, I book it, because she was playing this character. She was like, wait, but your character's not going to join the rest of the team? She's like, no, I just met these guys. I don't know what I'm teaming up for, and now we're in trouble. It was a Call of Cthulhu campaign, of course. But she just went, boom, gone. Like, okay. But she survived, so, I mean, hey.
In Cthulhu, that's winning the game, right?
Yeah. Surviving a little bit longer until the madness overtakes you.
I win. And that's another thing as well with players is make sure, because in when you're playing the game, your headcanon of your character might not be obvious to everyone at the game table. It is good to mention and reinforce what your character is doing at the time. Like, I've had some of my player group where, they're constantly like, whenever something intimidating is happening, the rogue is always cleaning his fingernails with one of his knives. So he always makes sure to mention that to the group of, by the way, guys, I'm sitting here cleaning my nails with my knives and glaring, right? That's what my guy does. That's his one job, besides sneaking around and stealing things and talking shit. So it is good as a player to make sure that you're reinforcing your story headcanon with your character, with the group, of what exactly it is that you're doing with them.
Oh yeah, but that's also a doubly useful thing, because if he is always cleaning his nails with his knives and he mentions it frequently, then you can assume that he's already got a knife out when something drops down, like someone goes for a surprise round. He doesn't need to draw his weapon because he already had it. He was cleaning his nails.
Exactly.
You know,
He
and
has
so
the weapon ready
mention
to
those
flick.
details. You can use them to your advantage. Like, nope. I might have a surprise round, but I don't have to draw because, like I mentioned, you know.
Yeah. You know, if you're the kind of guy and you're playing Star Wars as a smuggler and you always put your blaster pistol on the table because it's way more comfortable than sitting in your holster, right? You know, you may want to make sure you mention, as we sit around the table, I conveniently place my blaster facing where danger will be, but with arm's reach of myself.
Yeah.
And hopefully not danger.
Or if you happen to mention that, you know, along my hip, that one gun I have stays in this pocket that, you know, I always keep my leg aimed across from me because it's got a trick trigger and I can, you know, like under the table kind of thing.
The old pistol under the table.
Yep.
Because there's always a pistol under the table and a shotgun behind the bar.
Because someone's got to shoot first.
Unless they roll a destiny point to re-edit it later on.
Yeah. You know, it's funny. These days, watching Star Wars, it's like Schrodinger's blaster. Like, well, on fire, which version am I watching here?
Well, let's remember, the version we grew up on, when you watch it, Han Solo is a son of a bitch.
Yeah.
You know, you clearly see him see Greedo, and he's talking, he leans back, and patoing! Shoots the guy dead to rights.
Greedo said he was taking him to Jabba. I mean, I don't see any bad thing in him shooting Greedo there. He was coming to take him to die. You know, like, it is what it is.
But that is the beauty of Han Solo's story arc, is, you know, he goes from rough scoundrel to lovable nerf herder.
He goes from true neutral to good neutral. I mean, to
you know, he realizes, okay, this general thing's pretty good.
Yeah. Yeah. I was always more of the Han Solo loving character. I was never like, I want to be a Jedi. Like, no, I want to be a Falcon.
Luke was for the younger audience, you know, the one that wouldn't notice how annoying he was.
He's the little brother character.
I mean, you should totally hear Kelly when she does her little, you know, takeoff on just how bad Luke Skywalker was. And the fact that in the last few movies it just showed that he didn't grow as a character very much.
Yeah.
Will you take a new Padawan? No!
Will you take this lightsaber?
No! Oh, the joys of listening to interviews with Mark Hamill on that one, about how much that annoyed him.
Oh, absolutely. But he's so great.
He's a great actor, though. He really is.
He made this crazy little film. I think it's called like Comic Book Man or something like that. I forgot what it's called, but in it, he plays this guy who's going around to these cons, you know, interviewing people that are famous, you know, and like, and of course he pokes so much fun at himself and his Star Wars friends. At one point, he's going to sit and have some lunch, and there's a table there with the actors that played Boba Fett and Darth Vader and I think C-3PO, and they're sitting at a table having like lunch. He's like, "Hey, can I sit here?" And they're like, "Just scoot the thing over to where you can't sit," you know. And then and then he finds this guy to go around helping him, and it's Billy West, like, you know, the voice actor from Stimpy and Futurama and a million other things. And they're just walking around like nobody's talking to all these other people. It's funny, like, yeah. So, but just figured I'd mention it.
Well, that's a good mention because, you know, it's an example of somebody who's in the business doing the thing, and he's making sure to mention other people in the industry. I mean, it is about sharing things you like. I mean, one of the final points I like about mention is make sure if you have a game you like or a GM you like or a setting you like, mention it to other players, you know. Reach out and share what you like because that's the biggest part of our beautiful RPG tabletop gaming circles is when someone likes something, the immediately thing they do is they grab a game that they like. See, I'm shaking game box. And they say, "Hey guys, I wanted to mention this really cool game. We should sit down and play it sometime." And you basically find the time to play a game. And that's how I learned D&D was years, like, oh my God, decades ago. A friend mentioned this really cool book because it was the box set for AD&D, and we gave the game a chance. And immediately, next time I went to the local bookstore, I saw the DM's guide and it had that cool picture of the wizard with the fireball with the dragon. I picked that sucker up and started reading that, and that's what started me in my path to Dungeons and Dragons. It's all because one random person stole from their big brother their box set and said, "Hey, I wanted to mention, let's play this tonight."
Yeah, yeah. Well, and word of mouth keeps so much of the lore alive, and if just the lore of gamers, like, and you get to hear people mention video games that you never got to play as a kid because you were playing some other ones that they never got to play. I'll be talking to someone about, Quest for Glory or Four Crystals of Treasure, and they'll tell me about some other ones that I only got to see or whatever, like Bloodstone, old like early '90s computer games, but by mentioning them to one another, it keeps them interesting. And then these days, with the magic of the internet, just to mention of something means you can go online, you can watch playthroughs on YouTube of a game that hasn't been able to be played since like 1995,
That's true.
and learn all about that yourself. And the lore, keeping the lore alive keeps the love alive.
Yeah.
And keeping the love alive keeps gamers making more games and finding more gamers, and they make more games and finding more gamers, and the love grows and people grow and have new things to bond over, which is great.
And that's one of the things that's great with our our hobby / sport / lifestyle.
Yeah.
It's a lifestyle. It really is.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, don't be afraid to mention, because there's like the whole stigmatas of back in the day when we didn't say we talked about gaming, we just secretly went to our basements and gamed in, which, by the way, I never had that stigma. So when I ran into friends who had that, I'm like, guys, it totally sucks. I mean, your parents took your gaming books from you. I'm like, that totally sucks.
Yeah, I had that problem. My parents would never have let me play D&D when I was younger because, the whole satanic panic and stuff. But my friend introduced me to a book he had called Palladium Fantasy. And so Palladium was fine because my friend Brendan was a good boy, so surely he played good games, and it wasn't D&D, so it must not be evil. So I got to play Palladium for years.
And then, the best part of Palladium, because I was a huge Rifts and Palladium fan, is the big warning on side the cover that this book does not endorse or embrace satanic practices or demons or blah, 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 blah.
Yep, there's that too.
See, I was just going to kind of mention that when you mentioned the satanic panic. It's like, yeah, I slipped into Rifts, for a while. That was our upgrade from D&D. When it first came back, when you only had the base book and the source book 1 that came out with, and it's just like that was the angle we went from D&D, is because anyone who had problems were like, no, look, you can play people surviving in a horrible future apocalypse with dragons and stuff. Didn't mention the Federation of Magic at all.
Not to mention dragon power armor. I mean, those dragon glitter boys. Wow. Yeah. There's nothing that a glitter boy can't quite fix.
With enough applied pressure at 3d6 times 100.
Mega damage.
Badoosh. But and that's another one, is mention RPGs that you like to folks, because they may know nothing about these games or RPGs, and just by mentioning it and your love of what you loved about the game or what you may have not loved about the game, the whole roses and thorns thing, mention what smells beautiful and what pricked your finger and made you go, ow. Because, just by doing that, you may introduce someone to their perfect RPG. Because, it could be that this one's not their cup of tea because it's missing XYZ. But if you mention, hey, if you don't like that, I know this RPG's got this. And you can totally turn someone on to finding the RPG that turns them into a GM.
Yeah. Yeah.
I know some folks that until they find their perfect game, they weren't a GM until they felt super comfortable understanding and owning a rules system.
Absolutely. Or sometimes when you just want to find a different way. I mean, like I said, I played D&D for years, but like I mentioned earlier, to me it was always so much bean counting. It's like, it's just so much math and stuff. Not that I mind doing math, but I mean, like I wanted something that was just like more playthrough story. And then my friend turned me on to Savage Worlds, and it's just so much easier to, like it's still got plenty of numbers and it's still got a great system, but, it's so much more focused on the storytelling. I mean, some players are role players, ROLE, and then some players are role players, ROLL,
Yep.
They're just like, let's fight each other characters because we're not having a game this like, I heard them do it. They were like, "Oh, well, we're not going to play this week, so hey, let's just have a big arena and battle our characters." I'm like, "Why? We're playing D&D. It'll take like an hour just to figure out the spells. Like, why?" But I've had just as much fun in games where there's like no dice whatsoever, or just like you occasionally roll like a D20 or a D6.
Mm-hmm.
Like my wife runs our son on tons of games like that, where it's just some basic rolls just to kind of have some randomness in there to see how things work out. But
Just to make
it's
the
just
occasional judgment call. And
yeah. But those are just as fun sometimes, if not more. Because you can just let your imagination run wild. So, but
yeah,
I suppose.
it's all about taking down any boundaries of creativity.
Well, and creativity, I think, for me is just my favorite part of it all. Just worlds of imagining, like so. But yeah, but all those things and more, all with a simple mention.
All worth mentioning and then some. Okay, so I think we've mentioned everything we can probably mention in one mentioning. No, not really.
Yeah.
We could probably mention some more, but we should probably wrap up there, I think. Is there any last mention that you'd like to shamelessly drop there?
Well, now that you mention it, I'm guessing you're mentioning it for me to talk about Tavern Masters. So if you like the idea of running a tavern, it's a fun card game I made. You can check it out online. It's also on Tabletopia. So there you go. Shameless self-promotion plug.
I like it and I approve it, and I will definitely be showing more of Tavern Masters because gotta try it out, gotta play it, gotta break it, gotta make it happen, make it work. And I also wanted to mention tomorrow night we'll be playing our Smugglers Run game. We found out where the group is going to be going next on their next mission, a Outer Rim planet that only has a trading post and a Jedi temple that happens to be built over a Sith temple. So what bad things can happen there, I wonder? We'll be finding out. We will definitely be finding out tomorrow night.
Exciting.
Yep, and we also have the last day of #RPGaDay, which is thank, which we all have a lot to be thankful for, mainly because our friends, our family, our gaming groups, and the fact that RPGaDay is just fun, and I'm thankful for that. It's a thing we do every August, and we're happy about it. Can't wait till next year. All right, Dan. Like I said, thank you. Shameless plug on tomorrow's subject.
Yeah.
Thank you for coming on the line, hanging out with. It was fun getting to chat with you for a while. We're definitely gonna have to do that again.
Absolutely.
And we will definitely have to talk about Tavern Masters and Cthulhu: The Great Old One, because I have a friend who wants to play that already.
Oh, cool.
I mentioned that, and they're like, I've heard about it. I've seen it on a gaming shelf. I'm like, you have? Why have you not told me about this? More tentacles. Of course, that's my buddy Eric's thing, is tentacles. If he can bring Cthulhu into any setting, he will bring Cthulhu into any setting. Alrighty, and like I said, thanks for being on, and we'll talk to you later.
Well, thanks for having me. Have a great night.
All right, have a good night, man. And thank you guys for listening. Thank you for listening to the Creative Play and Podcast Network. And feel free to enjoy our other shows, such as D&D Journey of the 5th Edition and Scion Ragnarok and Roll, a Scion hero to Ragnarok story. Thank you for listening.